Zach, what project are you working on in the Everhart area?
That would be Everhart Road. So I believe it's a road, yes. So this is from the city. The city has the funding for this Everhart project, and it's a city street, and it's a rehabilitation project. It's a complete demolition and rebuild. And some of your projects, they'll just remove parts of the street, or for this one, for instance, we're going to remove everything, from the road to the curb to the sidewalk. We're going to be replacing fire hydrants, building new water lines, and storm and gas. So there's a lot of things that go into a roadway, not just what you see on the surface. So.
And so, from the private citizen's point of view, I know sometimes, I'm sure you've heard it, like, why does it take so long you're just rebuilding a road, right? But then when I see it driving by, I often see there's lots of pipes underneath, and, so are y'all also having to handle drainage and adding new pipes? I mean, like, why does it take so long, I guess would be the question from the general public. Like, and I think you alluded to that. So can you let me know, like, why is it so complex? Why is it so hard?
Right, so in my personal opinion, about 75% of the job is underground. So once you get to the surface, it starts to go by really quickly. A lot of the trouble that we run into is there's a lot of, especially in this particular project in Everhart, we know it's an older street. There's been generations and generations of people that lived here. And there's a lot going on underground. And a lot of times we don't even know what's underground. So occasionally we'll find a line and we won't know if it's gas or water, if it's live, if it's not. And what does take a long time is the coordination. So we are the contractor and we're working for the city, and we'll have to coordinate with the city, and the city will have to coordinate with all of their entities that they have. Just to make sure that, hey, we need to tap into this line. Hey, we need to move this line. We didn't even realize that this line was here, this water line. So then that could be a setback. Oh, now we have to reroute this water line because there's storm drainage that's going on top of it. And say, for instance, a hypothetical, say the storm, the city comes back at us and says, hey, we didn't even realize it was there, but it's active and we need it. So now they tell us, oh, well, now we can't touch the line. We have to go around it. Now we may need a redesign, and we have to go back to the designers. So there's a lot that goes on. To answer your question, it's a lot of the unforeseen things. So if everything went as planned, it would go really quickly. But we always have to prepare for there to be delays, acts of God, hurricanes, whatnot. So
when I think of road construction, right, I think bulldozers, graders, dump trucks, right? Is there a like professional term for that kind of work, right? Because I just think construction, right? But I understand there's like house construction, like massive skyscraper construction. So what like for this Everhart Road project, what classification of construction work, or is there a better term to describe this?
That's a really good question. And I don't believe I have a straight answer for you. So a lot of the underground, since there's a lot of parties that come into play, so, and like I said before, where you have utilities, so you have different companies that specialize in strictly utilities. Or if you have a storm, you have companies that specify strictly in doing storm drainage. There are contractors that can do it all, but that's usually not how these sort of things work. And the city likes to see the general contractor, which we generally are, and to see us sub out some of our work, right? To give opportunities for those other businesses, say the mom and pop businesses or the kind of up and coming, to give them a little piece of the pie. And this is really true in doing work for the state. So you do have to have some of those parties. Now, a term that we do use a lot for a lot of the work that we do is earthwork. So earthwork being moving dirt, simply. So move dirt from A to B, let's get it out of here, make a pond, because we need it to build up a header, or say an approach to a bridge, or an abutment, if you will. And a lot of time is spent on dirt work on larger projects. And it's material layers, and there's a lot that goes into every layer of construction that we have. And like I said before, the underground stuff, it takes a long time. Then once we're on top of the dirt, now it's not, oh, let's go ahead and just put asphalt down. It's more, well, we need to put this lime treatment in the dirt, mix it together so it's hardened. Therefore, you won't have any sort of sinking on a roadway or swelling on a roadway when the moisture content gets high. And it doesn't stop there. There will be another layer. They'll use a layer what we call base. And with this base material, it's generally what your surface layer, your finished product, sits on top of. So it's just reinforcement that the roadway will last for years to come. And how I look at things and what I like to say to my guys and people that I work with is, I don't ever want to work on a road after I'm finished with it. In my lifetime, in my career, I don't ever want to have to go back to it. Because if I'm going back to it, it means that there's possibly failures, unless it's, of course, a widening or urbanization.
Right. So I've heard the term heavy civil construction used. Is that something that would be classified for this type of work, or I mean, could it be? Again, I'm new to this, right? So if I was to go and explain it to my family, would heavy civil construction make sense for like this kind of road work, or would that be something more?
You're absolutely correct. It is heavy civil. So this is the heavy civil industry, and you could consider me a heavy civil survey manager, because primarily we deal with heavy civil.
Okay.
Yes.
And so for this particular project, since you're a heavy civil survey manager, which means you have heavy civil surveyors working,
yes,
could you talk about then your role for this particular project that we're working on here?
Yeah, sure. So the good thing about us and what we do is we're always there. So like I was saying before with the underground, a survey crew has already been there. A survey crew has already surveyed it, post everything that was done prior, the preliminary survey that was done by another contractor and the engineering firm drawing up the drawings, and then the city awarding the contract to me, the contractor. Being a surveyor, I never trust another surveyor. So I go and I make sure that all their survey is correct. That's the first thing I do before I do anything, before I put a stake in the ground. I go out there and I check their control. So here's a few things. This is a plan sheet that we use. And I didn't print out the whole thing because this is everything doing with the Hevel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing this is sheet 1 of 265. So,
Right.
So a plan sheet really is a bit of a misnomer. It's a plan book, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, it is. And it takes a while to really get through all this and kind of nail it down. But once you start going through a lot of these, they tend to have patterns and are pretty similar in structure. Mm-hmm. So, but the first thing that I look for when I get a plan set, where is it? So we have like an overview of this is our project site. There's SPID. We know we're in Corpus, mm-hmm. And then of course we can look on our map, and it shows that we were at Everhart at the cross section street Staples. So that's a really good idea of, oh, there's the project. I know where Staples is. I know where Everhart is. I can put it in my map if I don't, but here we are. Mm-hmm.
I also see, so there's some other, the other companies, are on here. The client, it looks like his name is on here. There's a project name on here as well. Anything else that you would like reference? I know when we make drawings, there's usually a project number. So is there anything on this page that also tells us that you reference, or do you really work from like an internal project, number as well? I'm sure I'm asking a difficult question, but yeah, what else can we get off this front page?
So, so to be specific about it, and of course we can go into all aspects of this page. And I know I said earlier, I believe I said 411, but it's 811. Call before you dig. That is the first thing on there, because there could be a lot of dangerous problems and safety precautions you need to take before you dig. So I noticed that. I noticed the city, the title, and then when I get down here, I can see who's the engineering firm, who built this plan set, who did the CAD drawings and all the engineering that goes into how thick the roadway needs to be or how deep the pipe needs to be, the size, diameter, thick, everything that goes into it. So all the engineering, we got Freese and Nichols. And then also we have the city engineer who went ahead and approved this. So he has his stamp and his seal that's saying this is ready to go on this date, 3/29/2023. I agree. And then now it's awarded. It goes in through a bid process, and typically with a city street here in Corpus, it's lowest bidder. And fortunately, we were the lowest bidder on this project, and we were awarded. Next is we get approval. We have a start date. So with surveyors, with my surveyors in particular, we're the first ones out there and we're the last ones. So we could be there 2 months for this particular project. We were here 2 months before we even put a bucket in the ground or an excavator bucket in the ground. So we were able to go out here and we were identifying all the control points. We were running level loops on the control points. We were running observations on the control points just to make sure that everything was correct and jiving and that we were good to go. We also, once we got all that hashed out, we were able to go ahead and do a topography, our own personal topography. And I can show you in here, they do have a topography that was done. Now we would like to go and use our own, and we can get a lot more detailed for surface modeling and different things like that.
Okay, so can you show me like more about what's in the plan set? So what's the first thing you look for? What's on page 2, right? Like how do you deal with 265 pages?
Well, you got to open it up.
That's a good step one.
So the first page is probably your most important page because it directs you where to go. So you have your index. It describes all the road work and all the different assortment of trades that need to be done. And you also have a legend. A legend being kind of the identifying some of the markers and things that you'll see throughout the plan set that you might not be familiar with, like water valves. It has a particular icon. So what I look for after I realize how many pages we have, I go and I look at just sheet 1, and I got a title sheet, sheet 2, drawing index, that's where I'm at. Sheet 3, voila, project location map and control layout. So let's go to sheet 3. Wow, this one's all marked up. So this is one I previously marked up after we already did our level loop, and we also did our static shots on this survey that was done. Now I noticed a lot of red flags. You see a lot of the red ink that I have because I'm having to change a lot of things. And I typically don't like changing what's already there unless I know it is necessary, absolutely necessary. And if I'm changing someone else's control, then I'm having to notify the city and let them know, hey, something here isn't jiving. This is the work that we put in. This is our correction to that. And is it all right if we proceed as follows? Now, I know a lot of the ins and outs. I know what they will like and I know what they won't like. So, it's usually not that bad. So I just have to make sure that everything is balanced and level and we are ready to go.
Right, so you said, the first thing you'll do is, you check the work, right? And so I think this is the good example of that because, everything that is in black was original, if I'm reading this correctly.
Correct.
Everything in red looks like it might be a problem or a difference.
Yes.
Okay, and then I see some green, so I'm assuming that means we're good.
Yes.
But I'm also seeing some blue lines and green. I mean, can you maybe talk about like, as you mark this up, like what kind of things are you telling me about the control? Because this is your control, right? Yeah, and that's a really important part of any survey project.
Correct.
And you've checked it. Excellent.
Most important, almost.
Well,
Safety.
some would say, right? Well, safety number 1, absolutely. So so tell me a little bit more about what you're calling out here and what problems you ran into and what you were checking for.
Sure, yeah, there's a lot of things behind just what's marked up in here. So there's a lot of data backing up a lot of the call outs and indicators that you see on here, which is what I personally marked up. So I chose different color schemes maybe to pop out differently than red and green, right? Red's bad, green's good. Now here we have an assortment of colors. Now this is referring to our level loops that we ran. Since this is such a long project, being approximately 2 miles long, to run a level loop from one end all the way down and back, it just doesn't make sense. So, and the chance for error, every time you do another setup, you're increasing your chance for error, as you should know. And so we try to eliminate that. So we try to take small bites of it. So what we were able to do here is we did 5 separate level loops. And we piggyback off the last level loop. So here we have the first level loop, and if this level loop wasn't ran correctly, say, and it didn't close out, because we'll do a closed level loop. If it doesn't close out, then I'll just simply have them do it again. If there's a problem there, then we have to really check our instruments, make sure that they're calibrated correctly. There's an assortment of tests that we can run on our own instruments. If they need to be sent to a lab, we can send to a lab or get a new one. We got to do it right, because like I said, the second most important thing. So we've jumped from level loop to level loop, and we did 5. So I want to point something out here and why I was so happy. Even though we got all this red markups, I mean, this happens every project. I'm always marking stuff up in red, and I might not always be right, but I do find discrepancies, and this party isn't here to tell me how and why they did it. What I see here is I'm looking at a TxDOT monument. Now this is a monument that is used for TxDOT on SPID, and it's also a monument that has probably been used for the city and everything that they built over here. And TxDOT's saying, hey, this is good. So it gives it a little more credibility than seeing, say, a control point where they'll have the abbreviation CP, And there's other control points in here that pop out a little bit more than the others. But what I noticed at this end of the project is the monument by TxDOT, and on this end of the project we have a BM122. Not sure what BM, where it came from, but that's a good start and end point that we have. So we were going to go ahead and say, you know what, we have to call an elevation good even though it might not be, because all the delta, all the math is going to work the same, right, when you run a level loop. So you could start at elevation 0 or 100, and after the level loop process, we'll know the difference in all the elevations along the corridor, and we'll be able to either raise it all up at once or lower it all up at once. You never want to take it in individual parts, right? So you want to always be level loop. With this, we just called this benchmark good. Even though we weren't confident that it was good, we still needed something to run with. So we ran with BM121. And as we're going throughout the corridor and we're jumping, binging off all these other points and setting up turn points if there's too much of a distance, or we would find there's areas where the control points no longer exist, we weren't able to find. This was all done. We try to locate all the points first, but so when I made it down all the way down to SPID where the TxDOT monument was, I noticed that I hit the control point elevation that was given. So you're telling me if I start at 2 miles away, start here, and I end 2 miles away, no matter how I broke this level loop up, if I'm hitting the same elevation within 100th is good for our terms. 100th is good. 200th's okay. 300th, we need to start questioning it. But I'm on the money, so I'm within 100. So I'm at the 1,000th. So I am perfectly fine with this. Now there are other checks that I'll have to do. I'll take all this information and I will go ahead and put it on our JECS pre-construction survey. So this is a pre-construction survey. Now there's a printout sheet that we'll give to the surveyors themselves and they can fill out a lot of the information. They do have their own field books where they document all their level loops and their task at hand. and so they could refer back to. But this is something that's primarily done in the office on the manager side. So what I do is I'll take their level loop, I'll take their field book, and I'll make copies. And I'll actually have the surveyor sit down with me, and we'll go over his entire level loop. I'm not going to assume we're a team. We're gonna think about every point we hit. We're gonna identify it. If there's a bust, we'll figure out the bust. We're working together, right? Not only me, the party chief, and his assistant. And that's how I'm able to get all this information down on here. Now I start running an Excel check on all of his math. This is all the surveyor's math put down, and we start at the one level loop, which you can refer to right here, where you have level loop 1 and then level loop 1. I started on, you can check me, BM122.
Check.
All right, and I turned, my last shot before I turned was BM003.
I see BM3 here.
BM3, and then I came back to BM1222.
Check.
And that was one level loop. I believe it's in a different color right there, different from the second one.
It is. I see it as a dark blue here. And then, so then I'm seeing that at BM3, I bet you started your second level loop.
Correct.
Okay, and then reading the plan, you went through a control point 125, a few others, and then I believe, if I'm reading it correctly, you may have ended at BM 137?
Close.
Oh.
We actually turned on CP006.
CP006.
There's a continuation of that color. Let's check.
Oh,
And
there
then
it is.
there it is, BM006.
Okay, so actually, yeah, and so what's interesting is, so we've got this on the third page here where we have our control. We've got the beginning, and since that road is too long, there's this thing that says match line A.
Correct.
That's what tells me, it's like, hey, okay, here I also see match line A here. This is where I continue.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, and so now that makes sense, because when I'm tracing this line, which it is the same color, so that should have been my first notification that, hey, still the same level loop, I do see that here, CP6 is where it continues. Okay.
That's correct.
So then can I try one more?
Sure.
Okay, so then for level loop 3, we're starting on CP6.
Yes.
And I'm tracing your line, so you go to CP 132. It's obscured here, I think 136, 134, 609, 141, 143. Let's see here. I believe we end on 144, or what? Or would it be CP10?
CP10.
CP10. Okay. So I only see like 3 colors, and that's purple and blues. But I knew we were close. So you're going through a lot of control points and benchmarks here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a lot. So how do you decide, or so the previous surveyors were setting these control points and you're retracing it, or are you also setting some at the same time? Can you talk a little bit about how these control points got here, and how you use them, or do you create
mm-hmm.
them? And yeah, that'd be good to know, because there's a lot.
There is quite a bit of control points, and you'll see later that we create control points off of their control points, and we'll eliminate control points. And there can be situations where there's too many control points and you don't know what to use. With this, the control points that were given by the previous survey team, they knew that there was going to be a project, right? So when the engineering firm, they needed to get a survey done on Everhart so they could construct a project digitally. When they got the survey team out there, they also know that they have to prep for other people to construct. So they'll do us the favor and they'll set some more control points. So that would be a BM, which is a benchmark, a CP, which is a control point. There are other previous control points done by other people. Maybe Nueces County set some control points, which we've went to, and also the tech stock control point, as I stated before. So there's a lot of things working, and the fun part is there's a lot of surveying going around in the city of Corpus Christi, right? So we just have to make sure we're kind of all on the same page. So we want to verify everything that we do. So I want to verify all their control points. Now, it would be a fool's game to go ahead and say that all this was correct. Let's go ahead and start constructing and let's build. And I could backsite one of these BMs that I didn't run a level loop through. I'm just assuming that everything was done correctly, nothing moved. You know, there was that we're just going to stick to this control and move forward. That's where you can have a lot of mistakes. So that is really risky business. And for as long as I've been doing this, I've always have found discrepancies in control, which, you know, someone might find discrepancies in my control. I'm not perfect. You know, that's why we do these checks, you know, and go ahead.
Well, yeah, and I think kind of tying that back, right? So plan set, and then remind me what this was called, what we were just talking about, the pre-construction survey.
Yes, it's just the pre-construction survey for Everhart. That's what we title it.
Right. And so as we were working through, you're doing the checks, and so at the end, that's where you're working with your surveyors to validate and to, you know, compare it against what you were given.
Yes.
To what you have, and then I'm assuming from here is where you then generated this markup.
Yes. In fact, this markup was generated while the surveyor was with me. So I brought the surveyor in, we sat down with this field book, and I will go through and I will pull up a CAD program. Generally, we use Trimble Business Center, and I will draw polygons and line strings just to follow his level loop. So me personally, it's like I'm doing it myself. So not only has he done it, and I'm not saying, you know, I'm validating his work. So there's all these checks and balances that go along with surveying, because if you really think about it, there's a lot of numbers going around, right? A lot of points, a lot of numbers, a lot of different types of measurements, and things can become wrong, you know. And so that's why we're always having to validate each other's work. There's times where I'm incorrect, and the surveyors call me and say, hey, you probably need to double check this, and oh, I did it wrong. Let's sweep that under the rug.
Well, but I think it highlights the fact that it's a team effort, right?
It is.
And it really seems it's a team effort, even from the client, the engineer, the designers, the surveyors, and then all those are going to come behind you, right?
Right.
And so you all want to do a really good job. You all want to check your work, and if there are issues, you absolutely highlight and you accept and change and modify, right? I mean, and
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah, and since this wasn't my work, it's not a stamped survey done by me, you know, that I file with the city, or the county. This is what this job was designed off of. So the funny part is you could use northing, easting, you could use a 10,000 and a 1 for easting, but they all have to mathematically jive. They all have to triangulate. So as long as they can triangulate, and I know where one point is, and I know the bearing to another point, preferably far away, then I can put all this stuff down on the map. Now, what works in our advantage is we do have northing, eastings, and we do have a state plane coordinate system that we use, and there's also geoids that we apply to some of the GPS that I'll be talking about later.
Excellent. In my mind, you're out there, you got a control point, you got a bulldozer that just blah, 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 and then it's moved it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you check it occasionally, or are we just, hey, we've already got it designed, we've got it in the GPS, so we don't need the physical mark? I mean, how does that work?
I'm glad you asked that. So, like I said, this is what they gave us, and I was able to change some of these elevations, and I also filed this with the city to let them know that, hey, I am changing some of these elevations, and I'm throwing some of these control points out because they are no bueno. Now, with our control, I have something different for you. This would be, I printed out, this is a CSV file, a comma delineated file. And it's basically just so a CAD program can read it, right? But I just wanted to kind of print it out raw. It doesn't have a lot of descriptions or anything. This is something that surveyors will turn into me, or I can extract off at their data collector. So this is the control that's basically done by the office. This is the control that they cannot control, if you will, out there in the field. So I'm saying all this control is good. And if you notice, you'll see that a lot of these points there's points in here that weren't in here. So there's points that we created off of this. And the list goes on. So this is verified points that I verified personally and said those points are good, we can use them, all surveyors can use them. And then we have the field control points, and this is field data. Sometimes some of the surveyors go a little rogue on me and want to create all their control points, and I have to lasso them back in every now and then to say, hey, we can't have too many, we have to scrap some, you know, you can't put control points anywhere. But for conversation purposes, this is the control points that a surveyor shot out in the field just so he could have, so it would make his life easier. And to answer your question better, sometimes these control points are taken out and we do lose a lot of control points. And that's one of the purposes that we have many control points. That's one of the purposes why I create more control points. That's the purpose why they create more control points. Now, there's a lot that goes into verifying some of the field data that's out there, and a lot of it is good ideas by party chiefs creating new points. It's just to say that I haven't verified it in my office and said, hey, we can utilize this for everybody to use.